Hello, and welcome back to the Golden Age of DC Comics 365 Days, where I take a much beloved coffee table book given to me by one of my best friends about 2 decades ago. It's been surfing all of my coffee tables ever since. It's well read, well loved, and what goes great with a coffee table book than good coffee? Oh, Tanzanian peaberry. This book, yeah, and it's a 365-day book, page a day. So I'm going to open to today's date, April 29th, and we're going to find out who we're talking about. The Golden Age of DC Comics runs from 1938 to 1955. The Silver Age between 1956 and 1970. The Bronze Age, I'm a Bronze Age baby, runs from 1970 to 1985, and we're in this kind of nebulous modern age of comics since 1985. But I'm going to get more to that a little later on in the program. If you've been tuning in, you know that I'm not obsessed with, but I want to know more about the ages of comics and what standard is used to define them. And I did some research, and we're going to get to that right after we turn to the page today. And how are you doing today? Thank you so very much for tuning in. Every day is a great day to read comic books. This is cute. Alrighty, it's April 29th. This is art by Fred Gardenier, and this is from Action Comics number 54 from November of 1942. Let's get to it. Let's not get out of glare. Try and spoil our reputation as good food, will you? Now you're going to see how we feel, you big ham. Said by the ham or the yam? Achoo! No pepper! Achoo! Help! I hate Tabasco too! But so do we! But you insist on it! Aha! And I'm a professional chef. Yeah. So there's a chef in the comic book, and this pleases me. April the 29th, a corrupt chef leads a gang of crooks in the story Recipe for Robbery. But he is forced to confess when Zatara the magician, the master magician, conjures up consciousness in the cuisine. Things get really creepy at the end of the tale when the piece of cake that Zatara is about to consume congratulates him on the conclusion of the case. Nice work, pal. So, we don't see the hero in these two sequential panels of art telling a story, but we see the food has come to life on the command of the master magician Zatara. And we're going to talk about Zatara real quick. Might have been one of the first big legacy characters as well in DC Comics. You might know his daughter, the amazing Zatara, the master magician, or the maestra magician. I mean, what would you call her? If we're you, there is a place for gendered language. Just because there's now a place for non-gendered language doesn't mean we're throwing the babies out with the bathwater. No, thank you. But Zatara was the golden age magician of the DC Comics. His magic words were to say something backwards, and he was a charmed. He was actually of an alien race called the Homo Magi, meaning humans of magic, and he hung out with Dr. Fate a lot too. But you might know his daughter, Zatara, member of the Justice League of America, hangs out with Batman and Superman, Wonder Woman, Red Tornado, Black Canary, also wears fishnets. And she inherited her dad's magic. She can say things backwards, and that's how she casts her influence, her spell. And so Giovanni, I'm reading from the wiki, by the way. Giovanni John Zatara is a fictional character appearing in comics published by DC Comics. He debuted as a superhero in Action Comics. He's depicted as a stage magician who also practices actual magic. So it's as if like, the stage magician is his secret identity, while he's actually a real magician and a hero. And but he's dead in DC continuity, and so his daughter took over the job, the family business. And it was a great gag too, backward speech. I mean, this is the 40s. Imagine children everywhere saying words backwards and spelling words backwards because you had to know how to spell and you had to know how to read, and then you had to figure out what they're saying. So there's a kind of fun basic puzzle to it. I hate puzzles. I really don't like puzzles. I'd rather draw a flower. Uh, but yeah, so Zatara, yeah, it has the backward speech. He's commanded the food to get up and take care of the corrupt crook, the corrupt chef who is in a gang of crooks. Isn't that funny? So, yeah, going back to my, almost every episode so far, I've been asking questions, and I've gotten great feedback. Megan Lee chimed in about the Copper Age that she heard at her local comics shop. And then, this is an individual who's, she calls herself the Noob and has her own comics show like this. And you should go check out and subscribe. And she takes old comic books from the Bronze and Silver Age and checks them out and reads them, and it's a really good experience. And so what I'd like to do is I've been cobbling together an actual standard of ages in comic books. How did I come to this? Well, I usually go to Wikipedia, but that's only, it's prima facie. You have to accept wiki for wiki. That's it. All right. We all know this. I'm a comic books fan all my life. I've grown up in different comic book shops here and there in the Boston area. Superhero Universe 3 in the corner of Winter in Washington on the second floor, if you remember that store. Yeah, the early 80s, that was my place. There was the NEC, New England Comics in Quincy, back when it was by the Rotary. That's like ancient history. There are so many comic book stores around my neighborhood and around my area, and I'm blessed for that. And this is part and parcel with the comic book shop experience. This is the Overstreet Price Guide. This is where you find out your comic book's worth. And it's an excellent source to find a standard about the ages of comic books. Now, I got 2 out of this, and I was not wrong. I was not, but there's a lot more to Overstreet. See, Overstreet, this is the 51st edition. And this is the most current one. I got this information from the glossary. It's a huge magazine, and it's a yearly. And it has a glossary. See, Silver Age comics published from 1956 to 1970. This is a reputable standard. And there's also another one in here about the ages of comics. And it's about Comics Link, and Comics Link is one of the first. It opened in 1996, and it was one of the first online catalogs of and ways to purchase comic books online, and they've been here from the beginning of this of the information age, the digital age of this all. So I got show notes. And so I've got 2 lists of ages. So that's what they look like, and I'll get to it. Yeah. Now, according to Overstreet's glossary, and this is the most current one, the 51st Overstreet, we have the Pioneer Age, which goes from the 1500s until 1828. The next we have is the Victorian Age, which is pretty short. It's 10 years long, but it's 1828 to 1883. Next would be the Platinum Age of 1883 to 1938. And this is probably starting off with, Civil War, not Civil War, the Yellow Kid. The Yellow Kid was one of the first published newspaper strips. And it was, this is bald kid with a goofy grin and this yellow nightshirt, and it had stuff written on it, and he got into mishaps and stuff. And it's also the source of the word yellow journalism, that will be a great topic for another day. But we have the Platinum Age, which goes from 1883 to 1938. So this encompasses, there's a Platinum Age. This is great. This is what I wanted to know. The Platinum Age encompasses all of those pre-Action Number 1 stories. Little Orphan Annie, Gasoline Alley, The Shadow, Dick Tracy, the Katzenjammer Kids. There's so many comic strips that, how do you define that? Well, those are Platinum Age comics. That's great. That's what I wanted to know. The Golden Age goes from 1938, and then this is Overstreet. Overstreet says the Golden Age lasts from 1938 to 1945. 1938 is Action Comics number 1. From 1946 until 1956, I've never heard this one before, but the Atom Age, ATOM, the Atom Age, meaning after the atom bomb and before the space race in the Silver Age. And now we get into a more traditional kind of what I've sussed out. The Silver Age from 1956 until 1970, and knowing this too also, in 1955 began the Comics Code of America seal that you can see on the corner of mostly any comic book. Let's look at this 1982 copy of Star Wars. It's right here. That's this one. That's the comic seal. Hello. I gotta learn how to, I need a camera crew. That would be great. Zoom in. Alrighty. And that's interesting to know. Not only was it the space age had begun, the Silver Age begins basically with Showtime number 4, Showcase number 4, DC's Showcase number 4, and the new Flash, Barry Allen. But also the Comics Code of America seal, meaning that this has been approved. And that came from like the horror comics of the 1950s. We'll get to this one in a different show when it's a slow news day. But this is an example of these. Tales from the Crypt is one of the reasons for the Comics Code. Yeah. And so from 1970 to 1984, we have the Bronze Age. And now we get into, here's what Megan Lee pointed out. We have a Copper Age that goes from 1984 until 1992. And then the Modern Age is from 1992 until now. And and that is the Overstreet glossary. Now, moving over to Comics Link, they're a bit more streamlined, and this is pretty much what I knew as the standard. And the Golden Age is from 1933 to 1955. The Silver Age is from 1956 until 1969. The Bronze Age is from 1970 until 1979, and a Modern Age from 1980 until the present. And I still now that I have some good standards to wrap my head around, I still contend that we are now in a new modern, a new age of comic books. Maybe it's called the postmodern age because that's the impact culture has had on the medium and the genre, or not. But I mean, I would totally see a dividing line about, I'd give it 2012 or so. What do you think? Are we in a new age of comic books? I totally think we are. What would we call it? What was the age we just left? See, these are the comic book conversations I still want to have. And it's great to now to have some better reference point and more information. And this is the joy about being a comic books fan, that there's always something new if you haven't gotten to it yet. Like, it's always, I haven't read these stories yet. Guess what? They're new to me. That's great. They're 70 years old. And I've actually read a few, and they're gruesome. Think of the children. I know, these were kids magazines. And this is great too, because this is late Golden Age, and this has advertisements and letters columns. And so these are just reprints of old issues. And I just love that it doesn't have the like the trade paperback format. Like, it just has reprints of the covers. You know, this is great. I'm loving this. This was a pretty good pickup. And thank you so much for tuning in. It has been the Golden Age of DC Comics, 365 days. We're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. So thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in tomorrow. We'll figure out who we're talking about when we turn the page. Like and subscribe if you could be so kind. We make daily content here. We talk about comic books. We talk about cooking. I have a playlist called What's Cooking. I'm a professional chef. It's a spiritual station here too. I got the gratitude lists and the Sunday sermons in a playlist as well. Hashtag lighten up. Let's go for enlightenment all together. And let's have a sip of this wonderful coffee. Tanzanian peaberry. This is great. Coffee table book, coffee table talk. Pull up a chair, friends, and let's talk about comic books. Thank you so very much. Tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern. We're going to be talking about comic books every day for the rest of the year. God bless. Thank you so very much.